Hello and welcome to this video lecture on web public relations. By the end of this chapter in this video lecture, you should have a basic understanding of web PR and be able to identify the different tactics involved in web PR. We'll also cover some best practices for writing an article for online syndication. You should also have an understanding of how search and social media can be combined for press releases, and also understand how an online press room works. And then lastly, understand the importance of pitching to bloggers, that is, getting them to write things for you. So we're talking about public relations and using that on the web. In the past, you would probably use some kind of media like TV or print in order to engage with your constituents, important people that you wanted to contact and influence. And now, where you're going to use the web or some kind of social media to do that. The time frame between when something happens and how you have to respond is much, much smaller than it was in the past. So when we think about web PR, it's about how do you connect with your customers, how do you respond to their customers. We had a chapter where we talked about engaging those customers in social media and what do you do when there's negative responses and how to respond. So this chapter deals with how do you go about actually responding to those negative comments or tweets or however they're using the social media to engage with your organization. So what you have to remember is that you cannot control the message that what the user is going to post or send, but you can help guide that conversation and then make sure that those communications are transparent. And that is, they're available to everybody and you're not just trying to hide something or manipulate that user in such a way that they will remove their comment and then you don't really have to deal with exactly what they were saying negative about. So when you're using web PR, you actually have to have a way of listening to those customers, have a way of responding to them, and then building your own voice. That is getting your message out there. One thing you want to do is be as honest as possible and as transparent as possible, because as soon as the online community sees that you're not being honest or you're not being transparent, it will become very vicious in the media about your product or service. And so, be as honest and forthright as you can, be as transparent as you can. One of the most successful tactics that you can use for web PR is to do an online article syndication. And this is where you would write something, but you're in no way a direct promotion of your site. And so you see this done a lot with IT articles. They'll write articles on, say, networking or security, and then there'll be links in the articles to your site. So the key thing here is they are not a press release, and the articles are written to provide information and content, and they can be submitted to these article directories, and these other sites will then scan these article directories and they may pick up or publish or use on their sites. This then is able to allow companies to get their message out and allow other companies to use fresh content on their sites, and then that also helps them with their search engine optimization. And what I mean by that is, you can see on here those backlinks, and we said that one of the things that you want is other people to list to your site, so that gives you credibility. And so if they're using those articles with links back to your site, that's how that SEO is going to improve your site listing, that organic result. So what sort of things would go into an article for online syndication? Well, the first thing you need to do is choose a topic of some type. It needs to be related to your site. It's going to have to be interesting, sort of informative, and fairly recent and new, that people can relate to the current technologies or uses of that product or service. And then you may want to optimize that article and publish it on your own site. And so what you're trying to do is make sure that you're also going to benefit from the search engine optimization there as well. Once you've got that worked out and everything is written, and you're starting to see some people come in and read it, and they're staying on your site, then you want to submit that article to other directories and make sure that there's links in that article back to your site. And so then you want to watch that progress to see how well that's generating visitors to come back to your site, or at least click on that link. And again, if you're using something like Google Analytics, it's very easy to track and see how long they had it open, if they clicked on it, and then if they came, where they went in that path that you've set up for the user on your website. Your book has a listing of different directories that you can submit your article to. I would suggest you click on some of those or type those in and see where they take you, and see if any of them might be of use to you if you're going to run a site and do some PR for that site. So here's an example of the first one, the ezinearticles.com, where you can actually submit this. And it gives you different categories that you want, and so again, you can use this for your web PR. So just as you're writing for your website and search engine optimization, you need to also do that for your articles that you might release. So they need to be optimized for the SEO, for searching, and for social media. And so when I say for searching, is people really want to scan the document. Things need to be bulleted, probably no more than paragraphs of 4 or 5 lines, and the sentences need to be on the relatively short side. Again, people want to scan, find what the information they're looking for, and move on. If it's going to be long and dense, they're going to skip things and not get what you're intending for them to be reading. So that online press release then should help drive traffic to your site, especially if you're going to submit it to some different article directories. And you want to use the same kind of key phrases that will allow you to get a higher search engine ranking. And you also want to think about the keywords that will allow your article to be found easy when people are doing searches as well. So some more specific benefits to doing these online press releases would be that you're almost getting instant publishing versus the more traditional way of using either TV or some kind of newsprint. And so now you've got to write something that people want to read, and it gets out there almost instantly. A lot of time in those news feeds, you'll scroll to the bottom of something you're reading, and it'll have links to different things that are semi-related to whatever topic you're on, but your article might be in there as well, and so that might get somebody to open it up, look at it, and then you've got links back to your site, so they may want to go ahead and do that. And so, as I mentioned earlier, if you've got a really good, well-written press release, that's going to help you with your search engines and the results for people finding that. One thing we probably haven't talked about is that if people have some kind of news feed on their website, or if they're reading a news feed through their email, then that may also pop up in there, especially when the rankings are high and they're only looking maybe the top 20 in that feed. Then that's going to come out and show Again, you're doing all this to drive them to your website. Some other benefits for these online press releases is that it makes it easy to have links that people can come back to your site with that you don't get in traditional media. You're going to be moving beyond your normal contact list of people that might be coming to your site. So you're driving new customers to your site. And so this, whoever you're reaching, you can actually track. Maybe it's geographically, and then you may want to tailor your content to maybe certain geographical regions. So besides these articles, you can also use social media to get your information out, so your personal story, if you will. And so what we mean by social media is that media that's published and created and shared by people on the internet. So that might include blogs, images, videos, tweets, and other ways that, things like Instagram would be an image. There are all different types of social media content that's out there. But writing a blog is probably one of the best ways that you can get your own voice out there and engage with your customers or your constituents. So the next thing we want to talk about is an online press room. So an online press room is part of your website, and it provides people that are coming into your site, especially people like journalists, with information about your website. And that information would be your corporate information, your public relation contacts, any images and press releases that you want others in the media business to be using. So you should have the following information. So sometimes you might have that as an about page or more history of the company, but you're going to have company history listed there, any key executives and their biographies. So usually you might see a small picture, and then underneath that you'll have that biography. It's not going to be very long. Any kind of background information that would be relevant to the website and relevant to those executives. And then you're going to use your key logos and images that others that might be able to use if you want to make that available to them. So you want to make sure they're in a format and a size and even resolution that they can use on either a website, or if they wanted to grab that and print that out, just make sure that you're giving them the copyright to do so, and it's the things that you want to be distributed on other sites or other social media. So some other things that you might include in your online press room is your previously released press releases, any kind of multimedia that you want, such as video, any visuals, any audio, some search functions, if you want to have some links for the RSS feeds or any email alerts so they can subscribe to that, any information that you're going to be putting out in different formats. So maybe you want an audio format, a text format, maybe it's for an RSS feed or different types of social media, those sort of things. So here's a template that you might use for your own social media newsroom. Notice you've got your executive corner, your media coverage, any PR contact information, any tagging. Here's the RSS feeds I was talking about earlier, any kind of news releases, any multimedia gallery, so on. So it's something that just makes it, if you're a large corporation, you probably want to have that on your website for others to use. Now, we continuously mention that bloggers are a good way to get your information out, and blogging is a good way to do that. But you also need to realize that that not everybody is a journalist. Even though you have a blog, it doesn't necessarily make you a journalist, and that a lot of journalists are bloggers, but they're not. But bloggers aren't necessarily good journalists, and so you have to think about who's writing this content. Are they writing it in such a way that it is like a good journalist that's writing it, so they're hitting all the correct answers of why they're doing this press release. And so if you're having bloggers write things for you and they may not be professional journalists, then things you need to understand is, they're not going to have to answer to an editor or publisher or you if you're overseeing that. They're not writing to pay the bills, so they're not writing positive content and getting paid for that. They're writing something that they're passionate about. And so the way they might measure success is the number of comments they get back, or the number of links they get back to their site, and the number of users or people that are coming to their site. So you may want to try and pitch your story to a blogger so they can write about your company. And so one way to build a relationship so that they might write about your company someday is to, read their blogs, comment on their blogs, and engage with that writer. And when you do provide them information, make sure that information is correct as possible. Be as descriptive as you can, as concise as you can. You're not trying to use them to spin a story. And so again, you want to be transparent and truthful all the way. Otherwise, if they see you're trying to use them to spin a story, then they may write something negative about you, and this story may even turn out to be worse because now they're engaged in putting out what you've tried to do in order to cover up something maybe. So as you're engaging with these bloggers, you also want to provide them with your content, but also any images they might use in their blogs, any logos, and then any new press releases you might have. So then to think about this web PR, you're going to need tools for listening. So where are you going to go out and find out what people are saying about you? We've covered that before. Tools for responding. How do you respond appropriately? Are you going to use bloggers to help you respond to either positive or negative comments by users? And then you're going to have some tools for tracking success. So you want to measure, the comments. What is the sentiment of those comments? And so you might have companies that go out there and track that for you, which we've covered in previous chapters as well. And so hopefully none of you are running a old-time kind of business. You're using social media and the internet to engage with your customers. But if you aren't, then you're going to have to figure out how to use this new media, and you're probably going to have to do some kind of web PR to help you get the information out and to engage with your customers or the people that want to use your product or service. And that ends this chapter on web public relations.